Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Biblical Bees. I hope you guys had a good week, good weekend, heading into another good week. I'm a tad bit under the weather, as you guys can probably tell by how I'm sounding, but we're still gonna push through. I'm still gonna bring you guys another episode, of course. So we're just gonna roll with it. Today we are back into our teaching in Matthew. Um, yeah, we're still pushing through it. Still doing these teachings, of course. Today's teaching is going to be about the teaching of adultery. That's where we're at. Our last teaching was about this teaching about anger. If you guys have not checked that out, go ahead and check that out. Um, so far, I have did four. This is the fourth. Yes, this right here will be the fourth teaching in Matthew. I've done the teaching about salt and light, the teaching about the law, the teaching about anger, and now we are on the teaching about adultery. And yeah, so we're just gonna hop into it. Yeah, we're still in chapter 5. We are chapter 5, verses 27 through 30. And of course, per usual, I'm gonna put the scriptures in the description for you guys to be able to look at those, go back to them, whatever you gotta do. So we're just going to get started. I'm going to start with verse 27. And I'm not sure if I ever said this before, but I read in the NLT version on my phone and on my, like in my actual Bible. Just for you guys that may not know. So yeah, I'm just going to get started. So starting in verse 27, it says, "You have heard the commandment that says, 'You must not commit adultery.' But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So if your eye, even your good eye, causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown in hell. And if your hand, even your stronger hand, causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown in hell." So, um, I just want to kind of take a pause. I feel like I'm not going to assume that everyone has, kind of went through something like this. Um, I know for myself, there was definitely a point in time where this has definitely crossed my mind, day to day. And I think this can definitely be a big factor, especially in relationships, or maybe you're looking to be in a relationship. Um, and it can be hard. It can definitely be hard. I know, we're humans. We all go through phases where, we may think that someone is attractive or, different things like that. But especially as believers, it's important for us to be able to set boundaries for ourselves. And, there's nothing wrong with saying, that this guy is attractive, this girl is attractive. There's nothing wrong with people saying that. But when you kind of take it to an extent to where you start having thoughts about that person, or, where you start thinking about, oh my God, there's so many things that I can do with this person and different things like that, that's kind of when it starts to, that's kind of where those thoughts start to appear. And now you have these intentions that you want to do these certain things with these people, which can, somewhat pull us away, and it can drift us away because we're so worried about doing these things with this guy or with this girl that we're losing focus of our Father. We're losing focus of staying in our word and, staying on our journey, staying on the correct path. So yeah, I know for myself, I can definitely vouch and say that I've definitely went through times of having, lustful thoughts towards people. Um, and I definitely would say that it definitely happened more so when I was in a relationship. And I think that people can, say that for themselves as well, especially, well, obviously when I was in this relationship, I was not saved at the time. So, I mean, that says it right there. But, I think even being in a relationship while being saved, since I've been saved, I have yet to be in a relationship, but just even being in a relationship, as a believer, that can still be hard. You guys are still humans. You still have emotions. You still have feelings. Like different things like that. But I think that's where those boundaries come into play with each other and setting those boundaries with one another. And I think, you know, like I said, I know for me, when after I got saved, that was definitely something that um, I had to work on. Being that even at a young age, I've always had, many thoughts that have crossed my mind, and even at a young age, very young age, being exposed to, pornography, that also didn't help in a way as I got older. With having those thoughts and wanting to do certain things, and I think even when I got in relationships and whatnot, those thoughts stayed with me throughout that entire time. So it was just like, oh, like I want to do this, I want to do that, and like I always had those thoughts. I always had those thoughts were just running through my mind, and it can be hard. I know, so I'm literally speaking from experience. It can be hard. Like, I'm not even gonna sit here and say that it's not, especially if that is something that you've dealt with for a long time. But that's why it's so important for us to be able to let that go and be able to give that away. We don't want that no more. We don't want to keep, having these thoughts, these lustful thoughts against people, and different things like that. And that was something that God had to set me free from. If not, I would still be stuck in that position that I was years ago. And I'm not going to say that, it doesn't try to creep up if I see someone that is good looking, or, I'm not going to say that, you're not going to try to have a thought in your head. No, I'm not going to say that. I wish it was that easy. Definitely, as we go through our journey, we're still going to get hit with these obstacles and these challenges, but it's important for us to remember, no, God freed me from that. I'm not going to let this thought take captive of me, So, going back to the scripture, verse 28 says, "But I say, anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Even if you don't physically do any, ouch, I just hit my hand. Even though you don't physically do anything, still having that thought in your mind, "Ooh, I want to have sex with this person," or "Ooh, I want to do this with this person," you are still committing adultery, because that intention in your heart, that intention that you have, you're literally saying, "I want to do this," even though you might have not gotten that far, or it was just a thought, and you might think, "Oh, I know this is never going to happen, but I still want to do it." You're committing adultery, because that intention in your heart that thought is crossing your mind, that you even want to do that. And I know some people are probably like, what, like that doesn't make any sense. But I remember, I can't even remember what I was talking about. I think I was having a conversation with my uncle and my brother about intentions. And even though we're not doing something, if I have a thought in my mind, "Oh, I want to kill this person," even though I'm not killing this person, I, you know what I'm saying? Like, you get where I'm going. That intention is in your heart that you want to do that, and I think that's important for us to be able to. God already knows our hearts. He knows our intentions. If He knows that you have that thought in your mind that you are trying to have sex with this person, like He's saying right here, anyone who even looks at the woman with lust has already committed adultery. If you're looking at a woman with having lustful thoughts in your head, you have already committed that. He is saying it right here. That last part, with her in his heart. Key word is his heart. In his heart, he has that intention, that intention of having those lustful thoughts. So now that man or that woman has committed adultery. And sin starts off with our mind and hearts. It starts off with our mind and our hearts, because us having these thoughts of even wanting to sin, it can lead us to sin. Because again, we have that intention in our heart that I want to sin. So most likely in the end, what happens? We end up sinning, because it's in our heart that we want to sin. Even if we don't, we still have that intention of wanting to, and that intention of doing it. And if we have those strong thoughts about sin and that it's on our mind, we're committing that in our hearts. We may not be physically committing it, but in our hearts we're committing that sin. And going to the part where verse 29, where it says, if your eye, even your good eye, causes you to lust, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown in hell. Okay, let's just pause. He's not telling us to legit snatch our eyeballs out. And in verse 30, when he's talking about cutting our hand, he's not literally saying cut your hand. He's not. I promise you, I don't think he will want us to do that. But he's saying, if your eyes, if you looking at these women, if you're looking at these men, and it's causing you to have these lustful thoughts, we need to figure out what we can do to not have these thoughts. You know what I'm saying? He's not being literal. He is not. But he is highlighting the significance of taking important steps to help us resist temptations. So what are those steps that we need to take to not have those thoughts with our eyes, seeing that woman or seeing that man? Same with our hands. One thing that plays a part of that is masturbation. I know that was something at a young age that I've struggled with. And I'm sure, many other little girls, little boys, whatever, have struggled with that too. Now again, he's not literally telling me to cut my hand, but he's saying, what can I do to help me resist doing that? What can I do that I can do to help myself from wanting to look up that porn website and look at that with my eyes, or wanting to use my hands and masturbate? What am I able to do in order to prevent that from happening? That's what he's trying to highlight, is like I said, that the importance of being able to take those steps to resist. What can I do? Maybe I can not go on safari, or keep myself actively doing something that way that's not on my mind. And I know for me, especially a lot of the time when I got older, just being at home, not doing anything, that's how those thoughts start to stir up, because I'm just not doing anything. I'm just sitting at home in my bed. And then, it happens to cross my mind. Now I'm not doing anything, so I'm like, okay, why not? Versus, me actively doing stuff, actively being out. I'm not thinking about that, because I'm out. I'm doing things. I'm keeping myself occupied. So, so for yourself, what can you do to keep yourself occupied? That way, you don't have to worry about doing those things. You know what I'm saying? And we are able to recognize our sins. At least I know I am. I know if there's something that I'm doing, I can tell if it's a sin or not. If I am going out here lying, I know I'm sinning. I know that. But what can I do to sacrifice to stop doing that? Or if I'm going out and I'm just having sex with a whole bunch of people, what can I do to stop myself from doing that? There's just a whole bunch of things. What sacrifice can I make to stop doing that? Maybe, changing my scenery, maybe not staying in my room all the time. Maybe that will help me, to not want to look at certain things or do certain things, So I think that is definitely a good way, just speaking from experience, that you can not have those thoughts and not want to do such things. You know what I'm saying? And just a question that I want to put out there, that I want you guys to think about throughout your day, throughout your week. What sacrifices can you make to avoid sinning? Now, I'm not going to say we're going to be 100% perfect at this. I'm not saying that. But these are the steps that we have to take to be able to not do these things. Could that be changing movies or, shows you watch? I'm sure if you're watching a whole bunch of movies and shows that have a whole bunch of secular things going on and nudity going on, you know what I'm saying? Like, that can have you looking like, ooh, like that looks nice, or I like what I'm seeing. That's not good for you to be doing that, especially if you struggle with having those lustful thoughts. Because now you're going to be thinking about, oh man, I remember that scene in that movie when that girl was naked. Like, you get what I'm saying? Or, just not watching TV. Take a break from TV. Or look at a different genre. You know what I'm saying? I always laugh and people always laugh at me, but I will forever watch cartoons. I'm not saying that all cartoons are perfect, but there's a difference with me, maybe watching Jesse or Austin and Ally versus watching a movie that is showing nudity every 5 minutes, every scene. You know what I'm saying? Because my mind isn't, I'm not having those thoughts on that scene. You know what I'm saying? When that movie or that show is over, I'm not constantly still having thoughts about that scene or what I just saw. Versus if I'm watching, Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, whatever the case may be. Again, I'm not saying that those shows are 100% kid friendly, because looking back, those shows they're so crazy actually listening to what they are saying. But again, I'm not physically seeing those things, and it's not causing me to have those lustful thoughts from what I'm seeing on those screens, seeing those sexual scenes and just, different things like that going on in those shows. Another thing, listening to secular music. I know for myself, maybe from like middle school to high school, R&B was the way to go for me. Early 2000s, 80s, 90s, all of that. And even, present day, like whatever year I was in, any R&B music that came out during that time. Especially, maybe, well, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say not the old school stuff, but pretty much majority of the R&B things I was listening to had something to do with something secular. And if I'm listening to a song about a man trying to have sex with this woman or blah, 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 again, that's just going to have thoughts in my head about this song. Oh, man. And me just vibing in the car singing that, like, what? That doesn't even make no sense for me to be doing that. Like, when I think about that, why would I want to go in my car, as a believer, why would I want to go in my car, turn on some, I don't know, Usher, Chris Brown, whatever the case may be, and listen to those secular things and then think that that is okay as a believer? Now I'm going to be thinking about that song. Oh, yeah, I remember when Chris Brown said blah, 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 or when whoever said blah, blah, blah in this song. You know what I'm saying? So I had to cut that off. It took me so long to delete all of that stuff out of my music. Not even just R&B. I deleted everything. Anything that was not gospel, any type of, Christian rap music or anything, it was gone. Because I didn't want to fill my thoughts with these songs that are literally talking about sex and talking about doing all these things, because now I'm going to just be constantly thinking about that song, vibing to that song, and it's just like, as a believer, why am I vibing to a song about somebody having sex? That just didn't make sense to me, And one last point is hanging out with certain people. If you're hanging out with certain people that's constantly talking about how many bodies they got or what they did with this girl and what they did with this dude, don't nobody want to hear that. At least I don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, No. Like, I don't want to hear that. Because then I feel like it's going to put me in a position where it's like I'm hearing all this stuff, and now I'm going to be thinking, like, dang, like, they said that they got this many, or what. Like, I just don't want to put myself in those positions. So those 3 points following that question, those are things that you guys can think about. What sacrifices can you make to help you avoid from sinning, to help you avoid from having lustful thoughts at people, doing things that you shouldn't be doing, looking at things with your eyes that you shouldn't be doing things with your hands that you shouldn't be doing, all these things. What is it that you're able to do to help avoid that? And I know it's going to be hard, trust me. But we have to be able to take those steps. We have to be able to take those steps 100%. Without taking those steps, we're not going to make any progress. We can't, I realized this for myself. I can't ask God to help me overcome something that I'm not even trying to overcome. And that's something that we have to realize. How do you want God to allow you to overcome something if you are not wanting to overcome it for yourself. Yes, we want to do it for him, but we need to do it for ourselves as well. We don't want to keep putting ourselves in these situations where we are still going through these things. At least I don't. That is draining. That is frustrating. Like, that is literally frustrating. We do not want to. We do not want to do that to ourselves, or we don't do that to our Father either. So that is literally something that I want you guys to think about, and we have to avoid it at all costs. Because having these lustful thoughts is going to give us the urge to want to do something. It is. I'm telling you from experience. Having these thoughts is going to want us. Having these thoughts is going to give us an urge to want to do something. It is. I'm telling you. So that next time that thought is going to cross your mind, stop it right there and ask God, talk to God, pray to God for him to take that thought, take it all the way out, because we do not want those thoughts taken captive over our mind, over our intentions, over our hearts. We do not want that. And I don't want that for you guys. Just as much as I don't want it for myself, I don't want that for you guys, because I know how hard that can be. So that's just something that we just have to work on as individuals, as children of God. That is just something that we have to really take the time to work on, because I know something like this can be difficult to work on, to do, but we have to try and take those steps. We cannot stay at this point forever. We can't. So that is that. That is all I have for you guys on that. I've really enjoyed doing this, reading about this. I feel like all the ones that I have a strong connection to, I just enjoy, because I'm able to relate it. I'm able to relate to it. I'm able to share my experiences with you guys about it. That way you guys can hear the things that I've went through, because I'm not perfect. None of us are. So I think being able to share my experiences with you, one, if you're going through it, this allows you to know that you're not going through it by yourself. I've went through it too. We've all went through it. We've all went through it at some point, So I'm just happy that, doing these teachings, I'm able to relate on it and be able to share that with you guys. So, yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I thank you guys for listening, of course. If you have not listened to the last episode, I did say that I started a podcast. Oh, good grief. I said that I started a TikTok account for you guys to follow. It is called Biblical Bees, of course. That's what literally almost every platform I have is called. But yeah, it's called Biblical Bees. If you search that on TikTok, you'll be able to find that. Give that a follow. Give that a share. All of that. Share it with everybody. So yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Hope that you guys enjoyed. I hope that you guys continue to enjoy my episodes as I enjoy making them for you. And I will catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.